Mia James had endured weeks of Dylan Mason's harassment at Brookdale High. The bully saw just another quiet black transfer student, someone who had learned to keep her head down and take whatever powerful boys like him dished out. Then one afternoon in the parking lot, Dylan decided words were not enough anymore. The slap echoed across the asphalt, followed by his smug laughter and the cheers of his friends. What Dylan could not see beneath Mia's careful silence was 8 years of Muay Thai training, fists turned into weapons by her Marine father, who had taught her to defend herself. Dylan thought she was weak. He was wrong. And Mia James was about to teach him exactly what happened when predators fatally underestimated their prey. Before we go any further, comment where in the world you are watching from and make sure to subscribe, because tomorrow's story is one you do not want to miss. Mia James pushed through the glass doors of Brookdale High School, her backpack slung over one shoulder. The hallways stretched before her like a maze of polished floors and lockers painted in school colors she did not recognize yet. Students clustered in their familiar groups, glancing at her with the casual curiosity reserved for new faces. "You lost, sweetheart." Mia turned toward the voice. A tall boy with sandy hair and a lacrosse jersey leaned against a bank of lockers, flanked by 3 other boys who wore the same easy confidence that came with being at the top of the social food chain. "Just finding my way around," Mia said, her voice steady. "Dylan Mason." He pushed off from the lockers and extended his hand. "Captain of the lacrosse team. I make it my business to welcome new students, especially ones as exotic as you." Mia looked at his outstretched hand but did not take it. "Mia James. And I am not exotic. I am just black." Dylan's friends snickered, but Dylan's smile never wavered. "Feisty? I like that. Where'd you transfer from? Columbus? Big city girl, huh? Well, things work differently here in Brookdale. More traditional values, if you know what I mean." His eyes traveled down her body in a way that made her skin crawl. "Lucky for you, I am something of a tradition myself. Been here since kindergarten. My family practically built this school. How nice for you." Mia shifted her weight, ready to walk away. "Hold up!" Dylan stepped sideways, blocking her path. "I'm trying to be friendly here. Show you around. Introduce you to people who matter. You don't want to make enemies on your first day." "I don't want to make friends either." One of Dylan's friends, a stocky boy with acne scars, laughed. "She's got attitude, Dylan. Maybe she needs to learn some manners." Mia's jaw tightened. She had dealt with boys like this before in 3 different schools across 2 states. They always thought they owned whatever space they occupied. "Listen," Dylan said, his voice dropping to what he probably thought was charming. "I could be real good to you. Take care of you like in the old days. You know what I mean?" His friends erupted in laughter. The hallway seemed to quiet around them, other students slowing their pace to watch the show. Mia felt the familiar weight of being the center of unwanted attention, the only black face in a sea of white ones waiting to see how she would respond to being put in her place. "I know exactly what you mean," Mia said, her voice cutting through their laughter. "And I'm not interested." She stepped around Dylan, but he moved again, his arm shooting out to brace against the lockers, caging her in. "Come on now, don't be like that. I'm trying to help you out here." New girl, probably doesn't have many friends yet. Could use someone to show her the ropes. Mia looked up at him, noting the way his friends had positioned themselves to block any easy escape routes. She had been in situations like this before, but something about Dylan's smile made her stomach turn. It wasn't just predatory. It was entitled, like he genuinely believed she should be grateful for his attention. "Get your arm down," she said quietly. "Or what?" Dylan leaned closer. "You going to tell the principal? My dad's on the school board, has been for 15 years. They're not going to believe some angry transfer student over a Mason." The bell rang, echoing through the hallway. Students began moving toward their classes, but Dylan and his friends stayed put. "This conversation isn't over," Dylan said, finally lowering his arm. "Welcome to Brookdale, Mia James. Hope you enjoy your stay." As they walked away, Mia heard one of them say, "She's going to be fun to break in." Mia stood there for a moment, watching them disappear into the crowd. She had transferred schools 6 times in 4 years because of her mother's job, and she had learned to read situations quickly. This was not just typical teenage posturing. This was something darker. She pulled out her class schedule and started walking toward her first period. Other students gave her a wide berth now, their eyes curious but careful not to linger too long. Word would spread quickly about the new girl who had stood up to Dylan Mason on her first day. Mia found her classroom and slipped inside, taking a seat in the back corner where she could see the door. As the teacher began taking attendance, she thought about Dylan's words. Traditional values. The old days. She had heard that kind of coded language before. Her father had taught her to throw a punch when she was 10, right after her first Muay Thai lesson. "Never start a fight," he had said, "but always be ready to finish one." Looking around at her new classmates, Mia had a feeling she might need to remember that advice sooner than she had hoped. Development 1. The harassment started the next morning. Mia was pulling books from her locker when Dylan appeared beside her, leaning against the adjacent locker like he belonged there. "Morning, beautiful. Sleep well? Dream about me?" Mia did not look at him. "Move. Come on. Don't be cold. I brought you a peace offering." He held out a banana. "Thought you might be hungry." His friends materialized behind him, snickering. Mia slammed her locker shut and walked away, but Dylan followed. "Hey, where are you going? I'm trying to be nice here." Mia kept walking, but Dylan stepped sideways, blocking her path to first period. Students in the hallway slowed, sensing drama. You know, most girls would be grateful for the attention. Dylan Mason doesn't just talk to anybody. "Lucky me," Mia muttered, trying to step around him again. This time, Dylan let her pass, but she could feel his eyes on her as she walked away. Behind her, she heard him say to his friends, "Don't worry, she'll come around. They always do." By third period, Dylan had found her schedule. He appeared outside her chemistry class, waiting with that same predatory smile. "Mia, what a coincidence! I was just walking by." "Your next class is on the other side of the building," Mia said without stopping. "How do you know where my next class is?" Dylan fell into step beside her. "You've been asking about me? That's sweet." Mia's jaw clenched. She had not been asking. She had overheard 2 girls talking about Dylan's schedule during lunch. Apparently, half the school knew his routines by heart. "Look, I get it," Dylan continued. "You're playing hard to get. It's cute. But you should know I always get what I want." Mia stopped walking. "What makes you think I'm something you can get?" Dylan's smile faltered for just a moment before returning full force. "Everything's for sale, sweetheart. Just got to find the right price." The next day, Dylan was waiting by her car in the parking lot after school. Mia had borrowed her mother's Honda for the day. Nothing fancy, but Dylan ran his hand along the hood like he was appraising it. "Nice ride. Little beat up, but it's got character, like its owner." "Get away from my car." "Relax. I'm not going to hurt it. Just admiring." He moved to block her path to the driver's door. "You know, I could give you rides to school." "My Mustang's a lot nicer than this thing. I don't need rides from you." "What do you need then? Money?" "I got plenty. My dad owns 3 car dealerships." Dylan stepped closer. "Or maybe you need protection. This school can be rough for outsiders." Mia felt her hands curl into fists. "Is that a threat?" "Just facts. Things happen to people who don't fit in. Accidents, misunderstandings." Dylan's voice dropped lower. "But stick with me, and nobody will bother you." "Devon?" Mia unlocked her car and got in, but Dylan grabbed the door before she could close it. "Think about it," he said. "I'll make it worth your while." The harassment escalated throughout the week. Dylan appeared everywhere, outside her classes, in the cafeteria, by her locker. His comments became more explicit, his accidental touches more frequent. He would brush against her in the hallway, put his hand on her lower back when talking to her, stand too close when she was at her locker. Mia tried going to the guidance counselor first. "Mrs. Patterson, I need to report a problem with another student. The counselor, a tired-looking woman in her 50s, barely looked up from her paperwork. What kind of problem? A student named Dylan Mason has been following me, making inappropriate comments, touching me when I tell him not to. Mrs. Patterson's pen stopped moving. Dylan Mason, are you sure you're not misinterpreting friendly behavior? Dylan's a good kid. Star athlete, honor roll, comes from a good family. He told me he could be my master, like in the old days. He follows me to my car. He touches me when I tell him not to. Well, Mrs. Patterson set down her pen and looked at Mia for the first time. Sometimes when we're new to a place, we can misread social cues. Boys here might be more forward than what you're used to. It's probably just his way of being welcoming. Mia stared at her. Welcoming? I suggest you try to be more open-minded. Give Dylan a chance. He's really quite nice once you get to know him. Mia left the office feeling sick. Meanwhile, across the school, Jack Simmons watched Mia walk past his table in the library, her jaw tight with frustration. He recognized that look, the same expression he wore after his own failed attempts to report Dylan's group for shoving him into lockers and calling him Taco Boy. Jack had been at Brookdale for 2 years, ever since his family moved from El Paso. Dylan and his friends had made those years miserable, but Jack had learned to keep his head down, take different routes through the halls, eat lunch in hidden corners. Watching Mia, he saw someone who had not learned to disappear yet. Part of him admired her refusal to back down. Another part of him feared what Dylan would do to someone who kept saying no. That Friday, Dylan cornered Mia by the gym doors after last period. You've been avoiding me all week. That hurts my feelings. Good. Dylan's smile turned cold. You think you're better than me? Than this place? Let me tell you something, princess. You're nothing special. Just another what? Mia stepped closer, her voice dangerous. Dylan's eyes gleamed. You know what? Don't make me say it. Mia felt something snap inside her chest. Say it! I dare you! Then, for a moment, Dylan looked like he might actually do it. Then his smile returned, but it did not reach his eyes. Soon, he said quietly. Real soon, you're going to learn your place. Monday morning, Dylan huddled with his friends by the trophy case, a wicked grin spreading across his face. Today's the day, boys. Little Miss Attitude is about to learn her place. What you got planned? Asked Tyler, the stocky one with acne scars. Public humiliation. Going to make her beg for my attention in front of everyone. Dylan's eyes gleamed. She thinks she's too good for me. Wait till she sees what happens to girls who don't show proper respect. Dude, you're going to get in trouble, said Connor, the tall, lanky one. For what? Flirting. My dad's on the school board, remember? Besides, it'll just look like playful banter to anyone watching. Dylan cracked his knuckles. Time to break this filly in. His friends exchanged glances but said nothing. They had seen Dylan's playful banter before. Dylan spotted Mia at her locker and straightened his shoulders. Showtime! There's my girl! Dylan announced loudly, striding up with his usual entourage. Miss me over the weekend? I'm not your girl, Mia said without turning around. Come on, don't be shy. Everyone knows we've got something special. Dylan moved closer, his voice carrying across the hallway. Been telling everyone how exotic you are, how different. Mia slammed her locker shut and faced him. Stop calling me exotic. Why? It's a compliment. You're not like the basic girls here. You've got that wild, untamed thing going on. Dylan's friends laughed, and Mia noticed more students gathering to watch, like a beautiful animal that needed to be broken in. The hallway went quiet. Mia felt every eye on her, waiting to see how she would respond to being compared to an animal that needed breaking. You want to know what's wild and untamed? Mia's voice was steady, but her hands were shaking with rage. Your breath. When's the last time you brushed your teeth or showered? You smell like a locker room that's been closed up all summer. Dylan's smile faltered. Hey now, and speaking of basic, let's talk about your personality. You've got the depth of a puddle and the intelligence of a brick. The only reason girls talk to you is because daddy's money buys you fake friends and a fake reputation. Dylan's face was turning red. His friends shifted uncomfortably. Your idea of flirting is calling girls exotic animals and talking about the old days like you're some plantation owner. News flash. Those days are over, and they're not coming back. You're just a scared little boy who can't handle being told no. Mia stepped closer, her voice rising. You think you're intimidating? You think you're special? You're nothing. You're a walking cliché with a trust fund and daddy issues. The most interesting thing about you is your car, and that's only because someone else designed it. The crowd had grown larger, phones coming out to record. Dylan's face was now crimson. And one more thing, Mia said, her voice cutting through the silence. I wouldn't date you if you were the last boy on Earth. I have standards, and you don't even register on the scale. Dylan stood there for a moment, his mouth opening and closing like a fish. The laughter from earlier had died completely. Students were looking at him with expressions ranging from shock to barely concealed amusement. Dylan felt the humiliation burning through his chest like acid. This was not how it was supposed to go. She was supposed to break, not fight back. His friends were staring at him, waiting to see what he would do. You think you're funny? Dylan forced a laugh that sounded more like a bark. You think this is over? You just made the biggest mistake of your life. Mia turned to walk away, but Dylan's voice followed her. Nobody talks to me like that. Nobody. The rest of the day, Dylan seethed. Every whisper in the hallway felt like mockery. Every glance felt like judgment. By lunch, the video of Mia's verbal destruction had spread through the school like wildfire. She got you good, man, Tyler said, trying to lighten the mood. But hey, at least, shut up, Dylan snapped. Just shut up! Dylan barely heard his afternoon classes. All he could think about was Mia's voice cutting through him like a blade. The way students had looked at him afterward, the way some had actually smiled. By the time school ended, Dylan's humiliation had curdled into rage. We're going to fix this, he told his friends as they headed to the parking lot. All of us. She wants to play tough. Let's see how tough she really is. Mia was walking to her car when they caught up with her. Going somewhere? Dylan asked. We're not done talking. Yes, we are. Mia kept walking toward her car. No, we're not. Dylan grabbed her arm and spun her around. You embarrassed me in front of the whole school, made me look like a fool. You didn't need my help with that. Dylan's grip tightened. You think you're so smart, so tough? Let me show you what happens to girls who don't know their place. Mia looked down at his hand on her arm, then back up at his face. Let go of me. Or what? Dylan laughed, but there was no humor in it. You're going to learn some respect. His hand shot out and slapped her rear hard enough that the sound echoed across the parking lot. His friends burst into laughter, and Dylan grinned, feeling like he had finally regained control. There we go. Much better. For a moment, everything was still. Dylan was smiling. His friends were laughing, and a few students who had been heading to their cars had stopped to watch. Mia stood frozen for a heartbeat. Then she turned around slowly, and something in her expression made Dylan's smile waver. Big mistake, she said quietly. Dylan opened his mouth to respond, but Mia's right hook caught him square in the jaw before he could speak. The crack of impact was audible 20 feet away. Dylan's eyes rolled back, and he crumpled to the asphalt like a sack of wet concrete. His friends stared in shock for half a second before rushing forward. Tyler swung first, but Mia ducked under his punch and drove her knee into his solar plexus. He doubled over, gasping. Connor grabbed for her arms, trying to restrain her. Mia spun out of his grip and caught him with an elbow to the ribs that sent him staggering backward. The third friend, Brad, smaller but quicker, managed to land a glancing blow to her shoulder before Mia's roundhouse kick caught him in the stomach and dropped him to his knees. The whole fight lasted less than 30 seconds. Mia stood over Dylan's unconscious form, her chest heaving. Around the parking lot, students had their phones out recording everything. Some were cheering, others looked terrified. Mia James. Security guards were running toward them, radios crackling. Mia didn't resist as they grabbed her arms, but she kept her eyes on Dylan's motionless body. "Someone call an ambulance!" one of the guards shouted. As they led Mia away, she heard another student say, "Holy crap, did you see that? She destroyed them." Dylan was starting to stir, blood trickling from his mouth. His friends were slowly getting to their feet, clutching their injuries. The war had officially begun. Principal Adams's office felt like a courtroom. Mia sat in the hard plastic chair, her mother beside her, while Adams shuffled through papers with the urgency of someone trying to avoid eye contact. 5 days suspension, Adams announced without looking up. Mia initiated physical violence against 4 students, resulting in 1 concussion and multiple injuries. Frankly, she's lucky the police aren't involved. What about what they did to her? Mia's mother, Lisa James, leaned forward in her chair. "That boy put his hands on my daughter inappropriately. According to witness statements, Dylan was simply talking to Mia when she became violent." Adams finally looked up, his expression carefully neutral. "There's no evidence of inappropriate contact. There's video of him slapping her behind." Lisa's voice was rising. "Multiple students recorded it. I've reviewed the footage. It shows Mia striking Dylan without provocation." Mia stared at him. "Without provocation? The video I was shown begins with me throwing the first punch. Whatever happened before that is hearsay." Lisa stood up. "This is unbelievable. So Dylan gets no punishment at all?" "Dylan and his friends were victims of an unprovoked attack. They're receiving medical attention and counseling support." Adams's tone suggested the meeting was over. "Mia will serve her suspension starting tomorrow. When she returns, any further incidents will result in expulsion and possible criminal charges." In the hallway outside the office, Mia's hands were shaking with rage. "They edited the video, cut out everything before I hit him." "I know, baby." Lisa put her arm around her daughter. "We'll figure this out." That evening, Mia sat at the kitchen table, staring at her untouched dinner while her parents talked in hushed voices by the sink. Her father, Michael James, had been silent since Lisa explained what happened at school. Finally, Michael sat down across from Mia. "Tell me exactly what happened, every detail." Mia recounted the weeks of harassment, Dylan's escalating behavior, the useless meeting with the counselor, and finally the parking lot confrontation. Michael listened without interrupting, his jaw getting tighter with each detail. "You did the right thing," he said quietly when she finished. "Michael," Lisa warned from the kitchen. "No, Lisa, she did exactly what she should have done." Michael looked at Mia directly. "When someone puts their hands on you like that, after you've told them to stop, you have every right to defend yourself. But I'm the one who got suspended because the system protects boys like Dylan. Always has." "Oh." Michael's voice carried the weight of his own experiences. "But here's what they don't understand. You didn't just defend yourself. You sent a message to every other predator in that school." Mia felt tears threatening. "It doesn't matter. Nothing changed. Everything changed. You just don't see it yet." Michael reached across the table and took her hand. "Your grandmother used to tell me, sometimes you have to fight the same battle twice before people understand you're serious." "This isn't over, Mia. It's just getting started." "What do you mean? You showed them you can fight. Now you have to show them you won't stop fighting." Michael squeezed her hand. "But you can't do it alone. Find others who've been hurt by this boy. Build something bigger than just you." Meanwhile, across the school, Dylan sat in the nurse's office with an ice pack pressed to his jaw. His father, Richard Mason, stood beside him like a guard dog, cell phone pressed to his ear. "Yes, I understand the girl has been suspended," Richard was saying, "but 5 days isn't enough. My son could have been seriously injured." "What do you mean there's video? Dylan was the victim here." Dylan watched his father work, making calls to school board members, threatening legal action, leveraging years of political connections. Within an hour, the official video had been scrubbed from the school's servers, replaced with edited footage that made Mia look like an unprovoked attacker. "Don't worry, son," Richard said after hanging up. "This will all blow over, and that girl will think twice before messing with a Mason again." But Dylan wasn't thinking about Mia's punishment. He was thinking about the moment her fist connected with his jaw. The way she had moved like she knew exactly what she was doing. None of his friends had ever fought back before. None of them had ever knocked him unconscious. 2 days into Mia's suspension, Jack Simmons was eating lunch alone in the library when he saw something that made his stomach drop. Dylan and his crew were surrounding a freshman girl by the water fountain, close enough that Jack could hear every word. "Come on, Amy. Don't be shy," Dylan was saying, his jaw still slightly swollen. "I just want to talk." "I need to get to class," the girl whispered. "Class can wait. We're having a conversation here." "No." Dylan moved closer, backing her against the wall. "You know what happened to the last girl who was rude to me? She got suspended. Might even get expelled." Jack had seen this exact scene play out dozens of times over the past 2 years. Different victims, same predator. But something about watching it happen again, so soon after Mia's suspension, made him feel sick. "Please, I just want to go to class." "See, that's not how this works," Dylan said. "You show me some respect. Maybe smile a little, and then we can talk about letting you go." Jack stood up without thinking. "Hey," Dylan turned, annoyed at the interruption. "What do you want, Taco Boy?" "Leave her alone," Dylan laughed. "Or what? You going to call your girlfriend Mia? Oh, wait. She's suspended for being a violent thug." Jack's hands were shaking, but he didn't back down. "Just leave her alone." "You know what? You're right." Dylan stepped away from the freshman. "Amy can go. But you and I need to have a conversation." The freshman girl fled without looking back. Dylan's friends moved to surround Jack, who suddenly realized he'd made a terrible mistake. "You think because Mia sucker punched me, that makes you tough too?" Dylan grabbed Jack by the shirt and slammed him against the lockers. "Let me explain something to you. That girl got lucky. It won't happen again." Jack tried to pull away, but Dylan's grip tightened. "And if I hear about you running your mouth to anyone about what just happened, you're going to wish you'd stayed in whatever border town you crawled out of." That afternoon, Jack walked home with a split lip and a black eye, Dylan's threats echoing in his head. But he also walked home with something else. A phone number he'd copied from the substitute teacher's desk. Mia answered on the second ring. "Mia, this is Jack Simmons. We don't really know each other, but we need to talk." "Hi. What happened to your voice? You sound like you've been crying." Jack touched his swollen lip. "Dylan happened. Look, I know you're suspended, but when you get back, we need to meet. There are others. Kids who've been dealing with Dylan and his friends for years." "How many others?" Jack thought about all the students he had seen cornered in hallways, humiliated in bathrooms, threatened into silence. "More than you think. And after what you did to him." After seeing someone finally fight back, Jack's voice grew stronger. "People are ready to listen." Mia was quiet for a long moment, remembering her father's words about building something bigger. "Where do you want to meet?" "Behind the gym. First day you're back. We'll figure out what comes next." After hanging up, Jack stared at his reflection in his bedroom mirror. For the first time in 2 years, he didn't look away from the bruises. Instead, he started making a list of names. Every kid he had seen Dylan's group target. Every student who had been too scared to speak up. The war was about to get bigger. Mia's first day back at Brookdale felt like walking into enemy territory. Students stared as she passed, some with admiration, others with fear. Word had spread about her suspension, but so had whispers about Dylan's continued behavior while she was gone. Behind the gym, Jack Simmons waited with 3 other students Mia didn't recognize. His split lip had healed, but the black eye was still fading to yellow around the edges. "You came?" Jack said, relief evident in his voice. "You said there were others." Mia looked at the small group. "This them?" A thin girl with short brown hair stepped forward. "I'm Emily Ross. Dylan and his friends cornered me in the bathroom last month, called me names, threatened to flush my head in the toilet if I told anyone." "Michael West," said a tall, black sophomore. "They've been taking my lunch money since freshman year. Yesterday, they shoved me into the trophy case and told everyone I was trying to steal something." The third student, a pale boy with thick glasses, barely whispered his introduction. Brian Cruz. They make me do their homework. Mia felt her father's words echoing in her mind. Build something bigger than just you. How many others? She asked. Jack pulled out a folded piece of paper. I've been making a list. Kids who've been targeted, kids who've been threatened, kids who just keep their heads down because they're scared. He handed her the paper. There are at least 20 names here, and that's just the ones I know about. Mia unfolded the list and scanned the names. Some she recognized from classes. Others were complete strangers. They can't suspend all of us. That's what I was thinking, Jack said. But we need a plan. We can't just start throwing punches randomly. End quote. Emily spoke up, her voice stronger now. What if we don't throw the first punch? What if we just don't run away anymore? What do you mean? Brian asked. I mean, when they corner you, you stand your ground. When they try to intimidate you, you don't back down. When they put their hands on you. Emily looked at Mia. You defend yourself. Mia nodded slowly. My dad taught me some things. Basic self-defense. I could show you. You'd do that? Michael asked. Dylan's not going to stop. The school's not going to help us. So, we help ourselves. Mia folded the list and put it in her pocket. But everyone needs to understand. Once we start this, there's no going back. They're going to come at us harder. They're already coming at us, Jack said. At least this way we hit back. Mia looked at each of them in turn. Okay, we meet here every day after school. I'll teach you what I know. But remember, we're not starting fights. We're finishing them. Over the next 3 days, their group grew. Word spread quietly through the school's underground network of victims and outcasts. Students who had been suffering in silence began to find their way to the meetings behind the gym. Mia taught them basic blocks, how to break free from grabs, where to hit to cause maximum damage. She showed Emily how to use her speed to stay out of reach. She taught Michael how to use his height advantage. She helped Brian overcome his fear of physical contact. The most important thing, Mia told them on Thursday, is to not fight fair. They don't fight fair, so neither do we. You go for eyes, throat, knees, whatever it takes to get away safe. Jack watched her demonstrate a knee strike and realized Mia was becoming something more than just another victim who had fought back. She was becoming their leader. Meanwhile, Dylan had noticed the whispers. Students who used to scatter when they saw him coming were making eye contact now. Kids who had been easy targets were walking differently, standing straighter. Something's going on, he told Tyler as they stood by their lockers Friday afternoon. These losers are acting weird. Weird how? Like they're not scared anymore. That freshman girl, Emily, she didn't even flinch when I walked past her yesterday. Tyler shrugged. Maybe they're just getting used to you being back. But Dylan knew it was more than that. He'd built his reputation on fear, and fear was a delicate thing. Once people stopped being afraid, everything changed. We need to send a message, Dylan said. Remind everyone what happens when you don't show proper respect. What kind of message? Dylan's eyes scanned the hallway until they landed on Jack Simmons, who was walking toward the exit with purpose instead of his usual nervous shuffle. The kind that leaves a mark. 1. As the weekend approached, both sides prepared for what everyone could feel coming. Mia's group had grown to 15 students, all of them learning to fight, all of them ready to defend themselves and each other. Dylan's group had also grown, recruiting older students and even some graduates who still hung around the school. The battle lines were being drawn. Mia spent the weekend practicing combinations in her backyard, her father watching from the porch. You sure about this path? Michael asked during a break. Mia wiped sweat from her forehead and looked back at the house, where her mother was pacing by the kitchen window, worried sick about what was coming. No, Mia said honestly, but it's the only path that leads anywhere good. Monday morning couldn't come fast enough. Monday morning brought the first real test. Jack was walking to his locker when Dylan and Tyler cornered him by the stairwell, the same place they had ambushed him dozens of times before. But this time, Jack didn't look away. Well, Dylan said, stepping closer. Look who thinks he's tough now. I'm not looking for trouble, Jack said. But he didn't back down. Too bad. Trouble found you. Dylan shoved Jack hard against the concrete wall. I hear you've been talking to people, making lists. That true? Jack felt his heart pounding, but Mia's voice echoed in his head. Don't fight fair. Go for whatever it takes to get away safe. I don't know what you're talking about. Dylan grabbed Jack's shirt and pulled him forward, then slammed him back against the wall. Don't lie to me, Taco Boy. You and that psycho girl have been recruiting losers for your little club. Let go of me. Or what? Dylan laughed. You going to call your… Jack's knee drove up into Dylan's groin with everything he had. Dylan doubled over, gasping, and Jack broke free, running toward the main hallway where teachers would be. Get him! Dylan wheezed, but Jack was already gone. 20 minutes later, during first period, Emily Ross was leaving the bathroom when 3 senior girls blocked her path. Mia had warned them that Dylan might recruit others, but Emily hadn't expected this. You're Emily, right? The lead girl, a blonde cheerleader named Brittany, smiled coldly. I'm friends with Dylan. Okay, Emily said, trying to step around them. Not so fast. Brittany moved to block her again. Dylan told me you've been spreading lies about him. That's not very nice. I haven't said anything that isn't true. See, that's the problem. Truth is relative. Brittany stepped closer. And Dylan's family has been good to this school. Your family? Nobody even knows who you are. Emily felt the familiar fear creeping up her throat. But then she remembered Mia's words about standing your ground. Move, Emily said firmly. Excuse me, I said move. I need to get to class. Brittany's smile disappeared. You little… Emily didn't wait for her to finish. She pushed past Brittany with enough force to send the cheerleader stumbling backward into the sink. You're going to regret this, Brittany called as Emily walked away. By lunch, word had spread about both incidents. Mia sat with her growing group in a corner of the cafeteria, watching Dylan's table across the room. They're recruiting, Michael said quietly. I saw Dylan talking to some of the football players during PE. How many? Mia asked. Maybe 6 or 7. Big guys? Brian looked terrified. What if they come after us all at once? Then we stick together, Mia said. Nobody walks alone. Buddy system everywhere. Across the cafeteria, Dylan was indeed building his own army. His jaw still ached from Jack's knee, and the humiliation burned worse than the physical pain. I want them isolated, Dylan told the football players he had recruited. Pick them off one by one. Show the rest of the school what happens when you mess with us. What about the girl? Asked Chad, a senior linebacker, the one who started all this. Dylan's eyes found Mia across the room. She was sitting with her back to the wall, positioned so she could see the entire cafeteria. Smart. Save her for last. Let her watch her little army fall apart first. After school, Mia's group had barely started their training session behind the gym when Principal Adams appeared with 2 security guards. This gathering is unauthorized, Adams announced. You're all to disperse immediately. We're not doing anything wrong, Mia said. We're just talking. End of Cree. Reports indicate you've been teaching students to fight. That constitutes planning violence on school property. Mia felt rage building in her chest. What about Dylan recruiting football players to attack us? Where's his punishment? I don't know what you're talking about. Dylan Mason hasn't been involved in any incidents since your unprovoked attack on him. This is unbelievable, Emily said. Adams turned his attention to her. Miss Ross, your parents received a call today about your altercation with another student in the bathroom. One more incident, and you'll face suspension. She didn't start anything, Jack protested. Mr. Simmons, you're already on thin ice after your fight this morning. I suggest you keep your mouth shut. As Adams and the guards walked away, Mia's group stood in stunned silence. They're protecting him, Brian whispered. No matter what he does, they're going to protect him. Mia clenched her fists. Then we protect ourselves. How? Michael asked. They'll suspend us for breathing wrong, but Dylan can do whatever he wants. Mia looked at her friends, because that's what they had become. United by shared trauma and determination. Her father's words came back to her. Sometimes you have to fight the same battle twice before people understand you're serious. We make it impossible to ignore, she said quietly. We make it so big, so public, that they can't cover it up anymore. What are you thinking? Jack asked. Mia's smile was sharp as a blade. War. Tuesday after school, Mia stood before 23 students gathered in the abandoned maintenance shed behind the football field. Word had spread through underground networks. The outcasts, the bullied, the forgotten. They had found a new meeting place after being banned from school property. I know you're all scared, Mia began, her voice carrying across the cramped space. I know, because I was scared too. Scared of Dylan, scared of his friends, scared of a system that protects predators and punishes victims. The group listened in silence. Some sat on overturned crates, others leaned against rusted equipment. All of them bore the invisible scars of Dylan's reign of terror. But yesterday, something changed. Jack fought back. Emily fought back. They stood up to bullies who thought they owned this school. Mia's voice grew stronger. And you know what happened? The bullies got hurt. The bullies got scared. For the first time in years, they felt what we've been feeling every single day. What if they expel us? Brian asked, his voice barely above a whisper. What if they don't? Mia shot back. What if we keep taking their abuse until we graduate? What happens to the kids who come after us? Do we just leave them to suffer like we did? Silence filled the shed. Mia could see the internal struggle on every face, the war between fear and hope, between self-preservation and justice. My dad told me something, Mia continued. He said, sometimes you have to fight the same battle twice before people understand you're serious. Well, I'm done fighting alone. We all are. Lake Bravox, a junior named Terrell, who had been quiet until now, spoke up. My little sister starts here next year. She's tiny, barely 5 feet tall. If Dylan's still here when she arrives, his hands clenched into fists. I can't let that happen. Then don't, Mia said simply. Help us stop it. How? Emily asked. They've got the administration. They've got their parents' money. They've got everything. They don't have numbers, Jack said, standing up. There are more of us than there are of them. There always have been. Mia nodded. The only reason Dylan has power is because we gave it to him. Because we scattered when he showed up. Because we suffered in silence. Because we let him pick us off one by one. She walked to the center of the group. No more. From now on, when Dylan or his friends approach any of us, we don't run. We don't hide. We stand together, and we fight back. What if someone gets seriously hurt? A sophomore girl asked. Mia's expression hardened. People are already getting hurt every day. The difference is now Dylan's going to hurt too. Across town, Dylan sat in his bedroom nursing a bag of ice against his groin while his father paced angrily. This is getting out of hand, Richard Mason said. First, that James girl attacks you. Now other students are getting aggressive. The school needs to crack down harder. It's fine, Dad. I can handle a few losers. This isn't about what you can handle. This is about respect, about maintaining order. Richard stopped pacing and looked at his son. Maybe it's time to involve the police, file assault charges against some of these kids. Dylan considered this. The idea of watching Mia get arrested had definite appeal, but something about it felt like admitting defeat, like he couldn't handle his own battles. Not yet, Dylan said. Give me a few more days. Amen? Back at the shed, Mia was wrapping up her speech. I won't lie to you. This is going to get worse before it gets better. They're going to try to break us, to make us afraid again. Some of you might get suspended or expelled. Some of you might get hurt. The group exchanged nervous glances, but nobody left. But here's what I know for sure, Mia continued, her voice rising with passion. We're already hurt. We're already broken. We're already afraid. The only difference is now we're going to make them feel it too. She looked around the room, making eye contact with each person. Anyone who wants to leave can go right now. No judgment, no hard feelings. But if you stay, you're committed. We protect each other. We fight for each other. And we don't stop until Dylan and his friends are finished. Brian Cruz stood up slowly, his hands shaking but his voice steady. I'm tired of being afraid. One by one, others stood. Emily, Michael, Terrell, Jack, until all 23 students were on their feet. "Then let's make them afraid instead," Mia said. As the group dispersed into the evening darkness, Mia felt the weight of leadership settling on her shoulders. These weren't just fellow victims anymore. They were soldiers in a war she had started. And wars, she was beginning to understand, always had casualties. The question was whether she could live with the ones that were coming. Wednesday morning erupted into chaos. Dylan's football recruits struck first, cornering Brian Cruz in the bathroom before first period. But this time, Brian wasn't alone. Michael and 2 other students burst through the door just as the attack began. "Get off him!" Michael shouted, throwing himself at the nearest football player. The bathroom became a war zone. Fists flew, bodies slammed against tile walls, and the sound of fighting echoed through the hallways. Other students gathered outside, some filming, others running to get teachers. By the time security arrived, 3 football players were on the ground, and Brian was standing, bloody but victorious, supported by his friends. "What happened here?" demanded Mr. Walsh, the head of security. "They attacked us," Michael panted, wiping blood from his nose. "That's not what I saw," said Chad, the linebacker, struggling to his feet. "These kids jumped us for no reason." Within an hour, 5 of Mia's group were suspended. But word of their victory spread like wildfire. For the first time, Dylan's people had lost a fight. At lunch, Dylan's table was noticeably quieter. His remaining allies kept glancing around nervously, as if expecting another attack. "This is getting out of control," Tyler muttered, picking at his sandwich. "Maybe we should back off for a while." "Back off?" Dylan's voice was sharp enough to cut glass. "You want to let these losers think they can beat us? I'm just saying maybe what? Maybe we should let Mia James turn this whole school against us?" Dylan stood up abruptly, his chair scraping against the floor. "No way. Tonight, we end this." Meanwhile, Mia sat with her remaining group in the library, trying to process what had happened. 5 suspensions, Emily said quietly. Brian, Michael, Terrell, and 2 others gone. "But they won," Jack pointed out. "Dylan's football players got destroyed, and now they'll come back twice as hard," Mia said. She felt responsible for every bruise, every suspension, every escalation. "This is my fault." "No," said a new voice. Mia turned to see Sarah Kim, a quiet junior she barely knew. "This is Dylan's fault. It's always been Dylan's fault." Sarah sat down at their table uninvited. "I've been watching this war from the sidelines, and I can't stay quiet anymore. Dylan and his friends cornered my friend Jasmine last month, made her cry, made her skip school for a week. I should have done something then." "Why didn't you?" Emily asked. Not accusingly, but genuinely curious. "Same reason everyone else doesn't. Fear." Sarah's voice grew stronger. "But watching you all fight back, watching Brian stand up to those football players, I realized I'm more afraid of staying quiet than I am of fighting." Mia felt a spark of hope. "How many others feel like you do?" "More than you think. A lot more." That afternoon, Dylan gathered his remaining forces in the parking lot. Word had reached him about Sarah Kim's defection, and he was furious. "They're recruiting faster than we can shut them down," he told his assembled group. "Time for a new strategy." "What kind of strategy?" asked Connor. Dylan's smile was cold and calculating. "The kind that sends Mia James to the hospital." Meanwhile, at the maintenance shed, Mia's group had swelled to over 30 students. The bathroom victory had emboldened others to join, but Mia could see the fear in their eyes. They wanted to fight, but they weren't prepared for what Dylan might do next. "We need to be smarter," Mia told them. "No more small skirmishes. If we're going to do this, we do it big." "What do you mean?" Sarah asked. Mia looked around at the faces staring back at her. Some eager, some terrified, all trusting her to lead them safely through this war. "Tomorrow morning, Dylan's going to try something big. I can feel it. So, we'll be ready for him." Mia's voice carried the weight of command. "All of us together in the main hallway where everyone can see." "You want us to fight in front of the whole school?" Brian's replacement, a sophomore named Alex, looked pale. "I want us to win in front of the whole school," Mia corrected. "I want every student, every teacher, every administrator to see that Dylan Mason doesn't run Brookdale High anymore." Jack stepped forward. "What if they bring weapons?" Mia's expression darkened. "Then we better make sure we're ready for anything." As the meeting broke up, Mia felt the familiar weight of responsibility pressing down on her. Tomorrow would either end Dylan's reign of terror or destroy everything she'd built. Either way, there would be no going back. Later that night, Dylan made a phone call that would change everything. "Dad, I need to ask you a favor. It's about that James girl and her gang. Things have gotten complicated. The war was about to become something much bigger than a school fight, and Mia had no idea what was coming." Thursday morning arrived like a storm front. Mia reached school early, positioning herself and her core group in the main hallway before most students arrived. They'd agreed on a simple plan. Stay together. Don't start anything, but be ready for everything. By first period, the tension was electric. Students moved through the hallways in clusters, choosing sides with their feet. Mia's group had grown overnight to nearly 40 students, while Dylan's alliance had recruited graduates and older kids who had no business being on campus. At 9:30 a.m., during the passing period between first and second classes, everything exploded at once. It started when Dylan's football recruits cornered 3 freshmen who had been sitting with Mia's group at lunch. What should have been another isolated attack became the spark that lit the fuse. "Get off them!" Sarah Kim screamed from across the hallway. Suddenly, everyone was moving. Mia's people rushed to help the freshmen, while Dylan's allies moved to intercept them. Within seconds, the main hallway erupted into complete chaos. Bodies slammed into lockers, textbooks flew through the air, and the sound of fighting echoed off the walls. Students who weren't involved pressed themselves against classroom doors, some screaming, others pulling out phones to record. Mia found herself fighting 2 seniors at once, using the confined space of the hallway to her advantage. She kicked one into the trophy case, sending glass exploding across the floor, then spun to catch the second with an elbow to the jaw. Across the hall, Jack was grappling with Tyler, while Emily and 3 other girls had Brittany pinned against the wall. The cheerleader was scratching and biting like a wild animal, screaming obscenities that would have gotten her expelled if anyone in authority actually cared. "This is insane!" Brian shouted over the noise as he ducked a thrown textbook. More students poured out of classrooms, some to join the fight, others just to watch. The riot was spreading beyond the original combatants, as onlookers got pulled into the violence. Dylan appeared through the crowd, his face twisted with rage. "Mia, this ends now!" But before he could reach her, a fire alarm began blaring. Someone had pulled it during the chaos, and now sprinklers were activating throughout the building. Water rained down on the fighting students, making the floors slippery and dangerous. Several people went down hard on the wet tile, but the fighting continued. "Everyone, stop!" A teacher's voice cut through the noise, but nobody was listening anymore. Mia slipped on the wet floor and went down, immediately rolling to avoid a kick from one of Dylan's recruits. She swept his legs and sent him crashing into a group of lockers. The riot had taken on a life of its own. Students who had never been involved in the original conflict were throwing punches, settling old scores, or just getting caught up in the violence. The careful battle lines Mia and Dylan had drawn had dissolved into pure chaos. Through the sprinkler rain and the screaming, Mia caught sight of Principal Adams standing at the far end of the hallway with a phone pressed to his ear. His face was pale as he spoke rapidly to whoever was on the other end. "We need immediate assistance," she heard him say. "Multiple fights, property damage, complete loss of control." Mia realized this was exactly what Dylan's father had been waiting for, an excuse to bring in outside force to crush her movement permanently. A window shattered as someone was thrown against it. Glass joined the water on the floor, making footing even more treacherous. Several students were bleeding now, though whether from punches or cuts from the debris, Mia couldn't tell. "Mia!" Jack appeared beside her, his shirt torn and his lips split. "We need to get out of here." "No!" Mia shouted back over the noise. We can't run now! But even as she said it, Mia could see they were losing control. This wasn't the disciplined resistance she'd planned. It was a brawl, and it was getting more dangerous by the minute. Dylan emerged from the crowd again, water streaming down his face, his eyes wild with something between fury and panic. "Look what you've done!" he screamed at Mia. "You've destroyed everything! I've exposed everything!" Mia screamed back. Around them, the riot continued to spread. More windows broke, lockers were torn open, and the sprinkler system was flooding the entire first floor. The sound of sirens could be heard in the distance, growing louder. Mia looked around at the chaos she'd helped create. Students fighting, bleeding, screaming, water everywhere, glass crunching underfoot. This wasn't justice. This wasn't victory. This was exactly what Dylan's father needed to justify whatever he had planned. But it was too late to stop now. The war had escalated beyond anyone's control, and the real battle was about to begin. The sirens were getting closer. The riot was dying down as exhaustion set in, but Mia and Dylan found themselves alone in the center of the flooded hallway. Other students had either fled or collapsed against the walls, watching through the sprinkler rain as the two leaders faced each other. "You and me," Dylan panted, wiping blood from his mouth. "No friends, no backup. Just us." Mia circled him slowly, her sneakers splashing in the ankle-deep water. "Fine by me." They'd been building to this moment for weeks. All the harassment, the humiliation, the violence had led to this final confrontation. Around them, the broken glass and overturned lockers created an arena of destruction. Dylan threw the first punch, a wild haymaker that Mia ducked easily. His boxing lessons hadn't prepared him for fighting in water while exhausted from a riot. Mia countered with a sharp jab to his ribs, then followed with a knee strike that caught him in the stomach. Dylan doubled over, gasping. "Had enough?" Mia asked. "Just getting started." Dylan wheezed, then lunged forward, tackling Mia around the waist. They went down hard into the flooded hallway, Dylan's weight pinning Mia beneath the water. She struggled against his grip, feeling panic as water filled her nose and mouth. Mia drove her elbow into Dylan's kidney, forcing him to release her. She rolled away and came up coughing, water streaming from her hair. "You think you're so tough?" Dylan was back on his feet, his face twisted with rage. "You think you can just come to my school and change everything?" "It's not your school," Mia shot back. "It's not your kingdom. You're just another bully who's about to get what's coming to him." Dylan charged again, but this time Mia was ready. She sidestepped and used his momentum against him, sending him crashing into the lockers. The impact echoed through the hallway. Meanwhile, outside the school, police cars surrounded the building. Officers in riot gear prepared to enter, but they weren't the only ones arriving. News vans pulled up as reporters caught wind of the massive fight at Brookdale High. Parents were speeding toward the school after receiving emergency calls. And among them, Richard Mason sat in his Mercedes, a satisfied smile on his face as he spoke into his phone. "Yes, it's exactly what we discussed," he told the voice on the other end. "Gang violence, property damage, complete breakdown of order. Mia James has turned a peaceful school into a war zone." But Richard wasn't the only parent making calls. Lisa James was racing toward the school, her hands shaking as she dialed her husband's number. "Michael, something's happened at Mia's school. There's been a fight, a big one. The police are there. I'm on my way," came Michael's voice through the speaker. Back inside, Mia and Dylan continued their brutal fight. Dylan had landed several good hits, and Mia's left eye was swelling shut, but Dylan wasn't faring much better. His nose was clearly broken, and he was favoring his right side, where Mia had repeatedly targeted his ribs. "You destroyed everything!" Dylan screamed, throwing another wild punch. "This school was perfect before you came here." Mia blocked the punch and drove her fist into Dylan's solar plexus. "Perfect for who? Perfect for you and your friends while everyone else suffered." Dylan staggered backward, his breathing labored. "My family built this place. We made it what it is." "You made it a nightmare," Mia said, advancing on him. "For kids like Jack, like Emily, like Brian. You made their lives hell because you could, Because you thought they deserved it. Dylan's voice cracked with desperation. Because that's how the world works. Some people matter and some people don't. Mia's next punch caught Dylan square in the jaw, the same spot where she'd first hit him weeks ago. This time, Dylan stayed down, blood pooling beneath his face in the water. The sound of heavy boots echoed from the school entrance. The police had arrived. "Everyone on the ground, hands behind your heads!" The commands boomed through the hallways as officers in riot gear flooded the building. Mia looked down at Dylan's unconscious form, then at the destruction around her. Broken glass, flooded floors, scattered belongings. Students pressed against walls with fear in their eyes. She'd won the fight, but at what cost? Mia James. An officer's voice cut through the chaos. "Step away from the victim and get on the ground now." As Mia slowly raised her hands, she saw something that made her heart sink. Dylan's father was walking behind the police officers, pointing directly at her. "That's her," Richard Mason said to the lead officer. "That's the gang leader who organized all this violence." Mia realized she'd played right into their trap. The riot, the destruction, Dylan unconscious on the ground. It all painted her as the aggressor, the violent criminal who had terrorized a peaceful school. But as the handcuffs clicked around her wrists, Mia heard something that gave her hope. Student voices, dozens of them, all saying the same thing. She was defending herself. Dylan started it. He's been bullying people for years. The truth was finally coming out. Even as Mia was being arrested, the question was whether anyone in authority would listen. The handcuffs bit into Mia's wrists as officers led her through the flooded hallway of Brookdale High. Around her, the aftermath of the riot was evident. Broken glass crunched underfoot, water dripped from damaged ceiling tiles. And students pressed against classroom doors watched her perp walk with expressions ranging from shock to admiration. Mia, don't say anything." The voice cut through the chaos. Her father, Michael James, was pushing through the crowd of police officers and paramedics. "Don't answer any questions without a lawyer." "Sir, step back," an officer commanded, but Michael kept moving forward. "That's my daughter. I have a right to speak to my daughter." Mia turned her head, water still dripping from her hair, her left eye swollen nearly shut. "Dad, baby girl, look at me." Michael's voice was steady despite the chaos around them. "You did what you had to do. You hear me? You protected yourself and your friends." She assaulted multiple students, Detective Reynolds interjected, consulting his notes. "This looks like gang activity to me." "Gang activity?" Michael's voice rose dangerously. "My daughter defending herself from harassment is gang activity?" Behind them, Dylan was being loaded onto a stretcher, still unconscious. Richard Mason walked beside the paramedics, his expensive suit somehow untouched by the chaos. "Officer," Richard called out, "I want to press full charges. Assault, battery, inciting a riot. That girl is a menace." Michael turned toward Richard, his fists clenched. "Your son put his hands on my daughter. He's been harassing her for weeks." "That's not what the witnesses say," Richard replied smoothly. "All I see is your daughter standing over my unconscious son." "Dad, it's okay," Mia said quietly. "I'm okay." Michael looked at his daughter, wet, bruised, handcuffed, but standing tall. In her eyes, he saw the same determination he'd taught her in their backyard training sessions. "Remember what I told you about fighting the same battle twice?" Michael said as the officers prepared to lead her away. "Yeah. This is the second fight, and this time the whole world's watching." As they moved through the school, Mia saw the reactions of her fellow students. Some of Dylan's friends looked satisfied, whispering among themselves about her arrest. But others, her people, watched with tears in their eyes and phones in their hands, recording everything. Jack Simmons broke free from a group of students and ran alongside her. "Mia, we got video of everything. The whole fight. Dylan throwing the first punch. All of it." "Kid, get back," an officer warned. "No, you don't understand," Jack persisted. "We have proof she was defending herself." "Jack, be careful," Mia called over her shoulder. Don't get arrested too. Emily Ross was crying as Mia passed, her phone held high to record. We're going to fix this. Everyone's going to know the truth. Outside the school, news vans were already arriving. The story of a massive fight at a suburban high school was spreading fast, especially with cell phone videos hitting social media in real time. Mia's mother, Lisa, pushed through the crowd of reporters and onlookers. "Mia, baby, are you hurt?" "I'm fine, Mom," Mia called back, though her swollen eye told a different story. "This is harassment," Lisa shouted at the officers. "Where were you when her son was attacking my daughter?" Detective Reynolds paused at the police car. "Ma'am, your daughter initiated a riot that injured dozens of students and caused tens of thousands of dollars in damage. My daughter defended herself against a predator." Lisa's voice cracked with emotion. "She did what you should have done." She stopped him. As they reached the patrol car, Mia saw Principal Adams standing near the school entrance, talking rapidly into his phone. He caught her eye for a moment, and Mia saw something unexpected. Shame. "Mia James," Detective Reynolds read from his notes as he opened the car door. "You're being charged with assault and battery, inciting a riot, and conspiracy to commit violence. You have the right to remain silent." Mia barely heard the Miranda rights. She was watching her friends through the car window, Jack organizing students to upload their videos, Emily coordinating with parents who were arriving, Brian Cruz limping but standing strong with the group. They weren't backing down. Even with their leader arrested, they were still fighting. As the patrol car pulled away from Brookdale High, Mia saw something that made her heart swell with pride. Students were pouring out of the building, not in panic, but in organized protest. They formed a line along the sidewalk, holding up their phones, chanting her name. The war wasn't over. It was just getting started. Michael James watched his daughter disappear into the police car, then turned to face the news cameras that were multiplying by the minute. "My daughter is not a criminal," he said clearly, his voice carrying across the parking lot. "She's a hero who stood up to a system that protects bullies and punishes victims, and we're going to prove it." The battle lines were drawn, and the whole world was watching. The courthouse steps were packed with protesters. 3 weeks later, Mia sat in the defendant's chair, watching through the window as hundreds of students held signs reading, "Justice for Mia" and "Stop protecting bullies." The media attention had exploded beyond anything she'd imagined. "Your Honor," District Attorney Rachel White stood before Judge Morgan, her voice carrying the weight of authority. "Mia James organized and led a criminal conspiracy that resulted in a riot causing over $50,000 in property damage. She turned Brookdale High School into a battlefield." Mia's lawyer, a young public defender named Daniel Cruz, Brian's older brother who'd taken the case pro bono, rose to respond. "Your Honor, Mia James is not a criminal. She's a victim who was forced to defend herself when every adult authority figure failed her." Judge Morgan, a stern woman in her 60s, looked over her glasses at the packed courtroom. "This is highly irregular. I have never seen this level of public interest in a juvenile case." The prosecution began their case with Principal Adams, who took the stand looking uncomfortable in his rarely worn suit. "Principal Adams," D.A. Walsh began, "can you describe the defendant's behavior since transferring to Brookdale High?" Mia James was disruptive from day one. She showed no respect for authority and seemed determined to cause problems. Daniel Cruz stood for cross-examination. "Principal Adams, how many formal complaints did you receive about Dylan Mason's behavior toward other students?" Adams shifted uncomfortably. "I don't recall specific numbers." "Let me refresh your memory." Daniel held up a thick folder. 17 formal complaints over 2 years. "What action did you take?" "The Mason family has been very supportive of our school. Sometimes complaints are exaggerated by attention-seeking students." A murmur of anger rippled through the courtroom. Mia watched several of Dylan's former victims lean forward in their seats. "So you believed Dylan Mason over multiple victims because his family donated money to the school?" "Objection," the prosecutor called. "Sustained," Judge Morgan said, but her expression suggested she'd heard enough. The real bombshell came when Daniel Cruz called Jack Simmons to the stand. Jack, 3 days ago, you discovered something on Dylan Mason's social media accounts. Can you tell the court what you found? Jack's hands shook slightly as he spoke. I found videos and posts that Dylan thought he'd deleted. They showed him planning attacks on students, bragging about harassment, and coordinating with his father to cover everything up. On the courtroom's display screen, a video began playing. It showed Dylan and his friends in Dylan's bedroom planning their final assault on Mia's group. "We'll make it look like she started everything," Dylan's voice echoed through the silent courtroom. "My dad's already talked to the cops. They'll arrest her and her gang, and everything goes back to normal." Gasps rippled through the audience. Richard Mason's face had gone pale in the front row, but the evidence wasn't finished. Jack had recovered months of deleted content. Dylan bragging about breaking in exotic girls, videos of him and his friends cornering students, even recordings of conversations with his father about using police connections to handle problems. Furthermore, Daniel continued, we have testimony from 47 students documenting years of systematic harassment that school officials ignored or covered up. One by one, Dylan's victims took the stand. Emily Ross described being cornered in bathrooms while teachers walked past. Brian Cruz talked about being forced to do homework under threat of violence, his voice growing stronger with each word. Malcolm West detailed having his lunch money stolen weekly, while administrators told him to try being nicer to his attackers. Each testimony built on the last, painting a picture of institutional failure that went far beyond one troubled student. The turning point came when Dylan himself took the stand. His lawyer had advised against it, but Richard Mason insisted his son testify to clear his name. Dylan walked to the witness stand with his arm still in a sling, his face showing faded bruises from Mia's final punch. He'd clearly been coached, speaking carefully and avoiding eye contact with her. "Dylan," his lawyer began gently, "can you tell the court what happened the day of the fight? I was just trying to talk to Mia, to work things out peacefully. She'd been threatening me and my friends for weeks, organizing other students to attack us. And when I approached her that day, she immediately became violent, started throwing punches for no reason. I was just defending myself when she knocked me unconscious." The prosecutor smiled, confident in Dylan's performance. But under Daniel Cruz's cross-examination, Dylan's arrogance began to show through his coached responses. "Dylan, did you tell Mia James you could be her master, like in the old days?" Dylan's lawyer objected, but Dylan was already answering. "It was just a joke. She was being uptight about everything." "A joke? I didn't mean it like that. Some people just don't have a sense of humor. Did you follow Mia to her car and make threatening comments? I was trying to be friendly. She kept rejecting my attempts to be nice. Oh, did you slap Mia James's behind in the school parking lot?" Dylan's lawyer objected again, but Dylan's temper was rising. "She needed to learn some respect. Girls like her think they can just—" "Girls like her?" Daniel interrupted. "What do you mean by that?" Dylan realized his mistake too late. "I mean, I just meant—" "You meant black girls, didn't you? You meant girls who don't submit to your harassment should be taught lessons. That's not what I said." "Aye, but it's what you meant. Just like when you told your friends you were going to break in the exotic animal, correct?" Dylan's face flushed red. "You're twisting my words. These are your words, Dylan. Your deleted social media posts, your text messages, your own voice on video." Daniel's voice rose with righteous anger. "You targeted Mia James because she was black, because she was new, and because you thought you could get away with it, like you had with dozens of other students." "I'm sorry." "She was the violent one," Dylan shouted, abandoning all pretense of calm. "She's the one who brought gang violence to our school. Before she came, everything was peaceful." "Peaceful for who, Dylan? Peaceful for you, while you terrorized other students? They deserved it." Dylan's voice cracked with desperation. "That's how the world works. Some people matter and some people don't." The courtroom erupted. Judge Morgan slammed her gavel repeatedly, calling for order. But Dylan wasn't finished. "My family built this town. We made that school what it is. Some little gangbanger doesn't get to come in and destroy everything we worked for." Daniel Cruz let the words hang in the air. Dylan's true nature finally exposed for everyone to see. When order was restored, Judge Morgan's voice cut through the silence like a blade. "I've heard enough. After reviewing all evidence and testimony, it's clear that Mia James was defending herself against a pattern of harassment and assault that school officials not only ignored, but actively covered up." Her voice carried the weight of justice finally being served. "All charges against Mia James are dismissed." The courtroom exploded in cheers. Outside, the crowd of supporters erupted in celebration, their chants audible even through the courthouse walls. But Judge Morgan wasn't finished. "Furthermore, I'm ordering a full investigation into the handling of bullying complaints at Brookdale High School. Dylan Mason will face charges for assault, harassment, and conspiracy. And I'm recommending that the state review the entire district's policies on student safety." Mia felt tears streaming down her face as her friends surrounded her, all of them crying and laughing at the same time. Her parents engulfed her in a fierce hug, while reporters shouted questions and cameras flashed. Through the chaos, Mia caught sight of Dylan being led away in handcuffs, his father following with his head down, finally facing the consequences of their actions. They had won. Not just the legal battle, but something bigger. They had changed everything. 6 months later, Mia walked through the halls of Brookdale High School, but everything had changed. New anti-bullying posters lined the walls, reporting hotlines were prominently displayed. And most importantly, she could feel the difference in the atmosphere. "Mia!" Jack Simmons jogged up to her, a huge grin on his face. "Did you see the news?" "What news?" "Dylan got sentenced yesterday. 2 years in juvenile detention, plus community service when he gets out, and his dad lost his seat on the school board." Mia nodded, feeling a complex mix of satisfaction and sadness. Justice had been served, but she took no joy in Dylan's downfall. Only relief that he could no longer hurt others. Emily Ross appeared at Mia's locker, practically bouncing with excitement. "Also, did you hear about Principal Adams? What about him? He's gone. Forced resignation. And guess who they're bringing in as interim principal?" Emily's smile was infectious. "Coach Reynolds. She's already implementing the new policies." Mia felt a genuine smile spread across her face. Coach Reynolds had been one of the few adults who had supported her from the beginning, recognizing her Muay Thai skills and understanding the situation she had been facing. As they walked toward their first class, Mia noticed something that still amazed her 6 months later. Students walking confidently through the halls. No one hugged the walls anymore. No one kept their heads down in fear. The atmosphere of terror that Dylan and his friends had created was gone. "Mia James, report to the principal's office, please." The announcement echoed through the hallway. But this time, Mia wasn't worried. These calls had become routine since Coach Reynolds took over. In the principal's office, Mia found an unexpected gathering. Coach Reynolds sat behind the desk. But she wasn't alone. Brian Cruz was there along with Malcolm West and several other students Mia didn't immediately recognize. "Mia, sit down," Coach Reynolds said warmly. "I wanted you to meet some people." The unfamiliar students introduced themselves. They were from other schools across the state, all dealing with their own bullying situations. "We heard about what you did here," said a girl named Samantha from a school an hour away. "We want to do the same thing at our school, but we need help. We need to know how you organized everyone." Mia looked around the room at the eager faces. Over the past months, she had received hundreds of messages from students across the country, asking for advice, sharing their own stories, requesting help with their situations. "The first thing you need to understand," Mia said carefully, "is that what happened here got really bad before it got better. People got hurt. I got arrested. It was a war, and wars have casualties." "Dodo, but it worked," Brian said quietly. "Dylan's gone. The administration changed, and bullying reports are actually being taken seriously now." Mia nodded. "It worked, but there might have been other ways, better ways. What would you do differently?" Michael asked. Mia thought about this question, one she had been asking herself for months. "I'd try harder to work with adults first. I'd document everything better from the beginning, and I'd focus more on changing the system instead of just fighting the symptoms. Coach Reynolds leaned forward. That's actually why I ask you all here. The district is implementing a new peer mediation program, and they want Mia to help design it. Me? You've become something of an expert on student conflict resolution. Coach Reynolds smiled. Your case is being studied by school districts across the country. They want to learn from what happened here. Oh. The meeting continued for another hour, with Mia sharing strategies for organization, documentation, and building coalitions. As the students from other schools prepared to leave, Samantha approached Mia. "Thank you," she said simply. "You gave us hope." After everyone left, Mia found herself alone with Coach Reynolds. "How are you really doing?" the coach asked. "All the attention, the speaking requests, the interviews, that's a lot for anyone to handle." Mia considered the question honestly. "Some days I feel like a hero. Other days I feel like I just got lucky that things worked out. And some days I wonder if I just made everything worse for a while." "The fact that you question yourself shows wisdom," Coach Reynolds said. "Heroes in movies never doubt themselves. Real heroes always do. What happens now? I graduate in a few months. Now you get to decide what kind of person you want to be going forward." The Mia James who fought Dylan, she was necessary. But the Mia James who prevents the next Dylan, she might be even more important. That evening, Mia sat in her backyard with her father, both of them practicing forms in the fading light. It had become their routine, a way to stay connected and centered amid all the chaos that had followed the trial. "Dad," Mia said during a break, "do you think I did the right thing?" Michael wiped sweat from his forehead and looked at his daughter. "Baby girl, you did the only thing you could do. And because you did it, hundreds of other kids don't have to. But Dylan's life is ruined. His friends got expelled. Even some innocent people got caught up in everything. Dylan ruined his own life the moment he decided other people were objects for his entertainment," Michael said firmly. "You didn't create that monster. You just refused to let him keep feeding." Mia's phone buzzed with another message from a student asking for help. She had received thousands of them over the past months, each one representing someone who had found courage from her story. "I think I know what I want to study in college," Mia said suddenly. "What's that?" "Social work or maybe law. Something where I can help change systems instead of just fighting individual battles." Michael smiled. "Sounds like you learned the real lesson." "What's that?" "That the fight never really ends. It just changes shape." End of time. As summer approached, Mia found herself reflecting on everything that had changed. Dylan was serving his sentence and reportedly doing well in counseling, finally confronting the attitudes that had made him a predator. Principal Adams had taken a job in educational consulting, working to help other schools avoid the mistakes Brookdale had made. Most importantly, the students Dylan had terrorized were thriving. Jack had been elected student body president. Emily was starting a peer counseling program. Brian had found his voice and was applying to debate programs for college. The ripple effects extended far beyond Brookdale. Mia's story had inspired policy changes in dozens of school districts. The Mia James Act was being debated in the state legislature, a bill requiring schools to have independent oversight for bullying complaints and real consequences for administrators who ignored them. On graduation day, Mia stood at the podium as valedictorian, looking out at her classmates and their families. "When I transferred to Brookdale High 8 months ago," she began, "I just wanted to finish school quietly and move on with my life. I never wanted to become the center of a movement or the face of student activism." She paused, seeing Jack and Emily in the audience, both grinning broadly. "But sometimes life doesn't give you the choice to stay quiet. Sometimes the right thing to do is the hard thing, the scary thing, the thing that changes everything." Mia's voice grew stronger. "We learned that standing up to bullies isn't just about throwing punches. It's about refusing to accept injustice as normal. It's about protecting people who can't protect themselves. And it's about believing that change is possible even when the whole system seems designed to prevent it." The audience erupted in applause as Mia concluded her speech. In the crowd, she saw her parents beaming with pride, Coach Reynolds nodding approvingly, and dozens of students whose lives had been changed by the events of the past year. As Mia walked across the stage to receive her diploma, she thought about Dylan, hoping he was finding his own path to redemption. She thought about all the students who had contacted her for help and the responsibility she felt to continue fighting for them. But mostly she thought about the future, college, law school, and a lifetime of work to ensure that what happened at Brookdale would never happen again. The war was over, but the real work was just beginning. The summer air carried a quiet warmth as Mia James stepped off the stage, diploma in hand. The applause of her classmates still echoed in her ears, but now the sound faded into something more distant, more eternal. That night, long after the graduation banners had been taken down and the stadium lights switched off, Mia sat at her desk by the window. The house was silent, except for the hum of cicadas outside. On her phone, hundreds of unread messages blinked. Students from across the country, some even from overseas, had reached out. One message caught her eye. "Dear Mia, my name is Alana. I'm 14. At my school, the bullies run everything. Teachers look the other way, just like yours did. I saw your speech on YouTube. You don't know me, but it gave me hope. I thought maybe I'm not alone anymore." Mia stared at the words, her throat tightening. She remembered the fear that used to knot her own stomach, the way Dylan's shadow had stretched across her days. And now, here was another girl, living that same fear, but looking to Mia for strength. She set the phone down and turned to the shelf above her desk. There, carefully folded, was the blue sash she'd worn at graduation. Beside it, the worn training gloves her father had given her when she was 13. Two symbols of her journey. One of survival, one of discipline. Her father's voice returned to her from weeks earlier. The Mia who fought Dylan was necessary. But the Mia who prevents the next Dylan, she might be even more important. Mia opened her laptop. For the first time, she didn't just reply to a single message. She began to write something bigger, a guide, a letter, a blueprint for students like Alana. She titled it, "How We Fought Back and How You Can Too." As she typed, she imagined circles rippling outward from Brookdale High, touching schools, towns, and cities she might never see. She wrote not as a warrior who had won a battle, but as someone planting seeds for a generation to come. Hours later, as dawn painted the sky in shades of gold, Mia leaned back in her chair. Her words filled the screen. Not perfect, not final, but alive. She looked out the window at the horizon. For the first time in months, she didn't think about Dylan Mason, or trials, or sirens. She thought about Alana, about every student still waiting for change. The war at Brookdale was over, but the echo of what had begun there, the courage, the defiance, the belief that silence was no longer an option, had only just begun to spread. And somewhere deep inside, Mia James knew her story was not ending. It was becoming a movement. The story of Mia James may have closed its final chapter at Brookdale High, but its echo lingers. Echoes always do. They travel farther than the walls that first carried them, farther than the courtroom where her truth was finally heard, farther than the graduation stage where she stood not as a victim but as a voice. What Mia endured was never just about one bully, one school, or even one trial. It was about something far older and far more dangerous. The silence that allows cruelty to breathe. Dylan's power was not born solely of fists or status. It thrived because so many looked away, because adults who should have protected chose convenience over courage, because classmates convinced themselves that staying quiet was safer than standing up. And yet, the moment one voice broke that silence, everything shifted. Mia's resistance proved what history has shown again and again, that injustice feeds on compliance, and the simplest act of refusal can ignite a movement. She didn't choose to become a symbol, she only chose not to bow her head one more time. From that choice, ripples spread. They reached her friends, who discovered their own courage. They reached her community, which was forced to confront its own complicity. They reached students she would never meet, who found themselves whispering, "If she can stand, maybe I can too." The lesson is not that every fight ends in triumph, or that standing up guarantees safety. It doesn't. Mia's path was brutal. Bruises on her body, handcuffs on her wrists, fear in her parents' eyes. Change always demands a cost, but her journey reminds us of something vital, that courage, however costly, multiplies. One act becomes two become a chorus, and before long, a system that once felt immovable begins to tremble. And so the story leaves us with a question, one not meant for Mia alone but for every person listening now. When the moment comes, when the silence of the crowd grows heavier than the cruelty of the few, will you look away or will you speak? Because bullying is not confined to locker-lined hallways. It exists wherever power seeks to humiliate the vulnerable. It hides in workplaces, in neighborhoods, even in families. Each of us will face, at some point, a choice between protecting comfort or protecting truth. Mia's journey shows that truth may stagger, it may bleed, but when held long enough, it cannot be defeated. And here, perhaps, lies the deepest education this story offers. Schools can reform policies, governments can pass laws, communities can hold rallies, but none of it matters if individuals keep their heads down when cruelty walks in the room. Justice begins not with systems, but with people willing to say, "This is not right, and I will not pretend it is." That is the gift Mia leaves behind, not just the end of her fight, but a beginning for ours. Now, I turn to you, the listener, the witness. What part of her journey resonated with you most? Was it her refusal to stay silent, even when authority failed her? Was it the way her courage inspired others to step forward? Or was it the reminder that even flawed, ordinary people can bend the arc of their world a little closer toward justice? I invite you to share your thoughts, your reflections, even your own stories of standing or struggling to stand against injustice. Leave them in the comments, not as decoration, but as testimony. For in speaking, you may find someone who needed to hear your voice as much as Mia's friends once needed hers. And if you believe stories like this matter, stories that shine light where silence prefers the dark, then I ask you to join us. Subscribe to Raw Black Stories, not for numbers, but because together we keep the echo alive. Each story becomes a seed. Each voice becomes another link in a chain, strong enough to resist the weight of cruelty. The world does not change because a single Mia fights back. It changes because those who witness her story choose not to forget, choose not to remain bystanders, choose to carry the echo into their own lives. So let this be more than an ending. Let it be an invitation to remember, to speak, to act, because bullies thrive in silence. But silence is not destiny unless we allow it to be. And somewhere, right now, another Mia is waiting to see whether you will stay quiet or whether you will stand.